All right, well, I'm excited about this conversation. I don't know if there's going to be any fisticuffs, but anyway, I'm really delighted to have assembled a group of both broadband providers and community leaders that are active in efforts to improve the availability and adoption of broadband. And I was especially pleased to hear Ryan Mead yesterday talking about, you know, a community like Sutton, for example, can be a global leader if a few conditions are met. Certainly the availability of broadband is one question, but also the community leadership to help businesses and organizations understand how to leverage broadband technologies to provide economic and community growth. And that's really kind of the focus of today's conversation. We intend this to be interactive. I've got a number of questions that can prompt a discussion, but I would invite any of you at any time to jump up and ask a question. We've got a couple of handheld mics that we've allocated up here, so we'll probably just ask you to speak without one from the audience, but I think we're a small enough group that everybody can hear. So for starters, if I could ask the panel just kind of to go down the line and introduce yourself and who you're with, please.
My name is Jason Evans, and I'm from That Kind of Works.
You can use the mic if you want. All right.
I'm Brian Thompson with Consolidated Companies, Vice President of External Relations.
I'm Mike Mawby with Charter Communications.
Troy Stickels with Glenwood Telephone.
Tom Shoemaker with Pinpoint Communications.
Nate Wyatt with Gothenburg State Bank and working economic development for Gothenburg.
Jason Axthelm with NebraskaLink.
I have a soft voice. I am Liz Connor, and I am the Latino Business Liaison for the University of Nebraska, and I'm doing the surveys among the Latino population in Omaha.
Great. Thank you very much. Well, I guess for starters, I mean, in my experience, it kind of depends on who you ask in terms of, you know, where Nebraska is as a state in terms of broadband availability. Give me some perspectives from your point of view as far as, you know, in terms of broadband availability in the state of Nebraska. Where are we? Are there gaps? Are we getting there? Are we there? And whoever wants to start can start.
I'll definitely start.
Okay, I can count on you, Mike.
Microphone, please.
They said, no. Can you not hear me? I'm sorry. The 2 or 3 speakers just previous to us told us where we're at as far as K through 12, and I think cooperatively, this panel and others in this audience need a round of applause for the fact that Nebraska is doing 100% to K through 12 schools. That didn't happen by just one company up here. So we have definitely hit that mark. We service 56 communities in the state. We have broadband capability in all of those communities, and up to 1 gig of transport available. It's not all to the home, so that, you know, we haven't hit all that mark, but as far as the communities we serve, we've done a very good job. It's the real rural where I think we have not been able to hit in the state of Nebraska, and cooperatively or competitively, this group, I think, is destined to try to cover some more of that.
Anyone else want to weigh in on that one?
I can weigh in for a few seconds here. The hardest thing to do, and I think everyone in this audience knows that, is to hit the folks that are outside of town. Inside of town in Nebraska, it's pretty well covered. And there's usually multiple providers in most towns. Paxton, Nebraska, for example, has 4 internet providers. We're just one of them, and in town. There are a few wireless providers that work outside of town, and even the wireless business in availability outside of town is kind of slim in terms of that business model. So it's an interesting project, but in town and in Nebraska, you usually even have choices in the smallest communities.
I would say, as a non-industry analyst, somebody who's consumed or looked at this from the consumer side of the table. Live in a town of 3,500 people in Gothenburg and see communities that have high-speed connectivity, and we're limited in our access. We're working on addressing that. But if you don't have it, it's a severe handicap. Our communities are right on the interstate, right on I-80, and we've benefited from that for decades. And we can start to see slippage in where we're at because we didn't have high-speed connectivity available affordably to all businesses and all homes. I think there is availability, but it comes at a price if you don't have mass infrastructure in your community, and the pricing can really be cost prohibitive for some of those small businesses or micro businesses. So getting a wide availability affordably really does make a difference. Kind of reminds me of the old story, I'm sure everybody's heard it, where the little kid's running down the beach and there's a bunch of starfish on the beach and he's frantically throwing them into the ocean, and the dad says, "Oh, son, you're never gonna make it, you're never gonna save them all." And the kid optimistically and innocently looks at the dad and says, "Well, it mattered to that one." So there's a heck of a lot of little communities and little businesses across the state that probably still are underserved, either from an affordability or from an availability standpoint.
Okay. Yeah, kind of a follow-on need for you and for Liz. Why is this important? I mean, what specifically does broadband mean to your community and communities of interest?
Well, in the Latino community, as I'm taking the survey about their internet needs and broadband, they don't have a good understanding yet of how to use some of the computer programs. And so as I explained to them, do you have a telephone? And they say, yes, well, that's a computer. And so then their eyes, they spark up, and then they begin to understand that they are using the internet, they are using the computer in their homes. And since I'm in Omaha, we have so many different internet providers that has not been an issue about what their access to the internet is, because they have so many different choices.
I guess what I would say specifically, I guess I'll just give an example. One business is located in Gothenburg. We've got a PhD in chemistry that creates molecules for a living. He spends all day making molecules. He doesn't have a single customer in the state of Nebraska, much less in the town of Gothenburg. He's not from Gothenburg. He loves golf. We've got a great golf course there. He moved his family there about 8 years ago to build molecules in Gothenburg. We're hitting the bottleneck as to what types of businesses could relocate that way in a small town without connectivity. There's a story of a family that wanted to come back out west to be close to grandkids, but they needed high-speed internet access to do that. It was about 3 years ago, and they were trying to get to Mawby, Nebraska, which was south of the Ogallala. This has been several years ago, but the closest they could get was Cozad at that point in time, North Platte, Ogallala. Those towns didn't have high-speed connectivity at that time. So this really is affecting big businesses and small businesses and the viability of our rural America and smaller communities.
Yeah. Okay. I think Liz touched on a good point, and I'm interested in everyone's perspective on this. Do businesses that you work with, individuals, the public at large, do you think they really get what this is all about? Do they have a full understanding of how broadband can assist community and economic growth? And if not, what can we do about it?
I think it's a good question. I think there are some that do fully understand what it can do for them. And I think those are, I listen to people talk to their entrepreneurship, and we have a farmer who lives outside of the rural area who started it's called Green Cover Seeds. And he just told me last week that, we can't do this without broadband. And, we got 50 meg to his house, and he's now going to open a location in Texas. And that's a success story. And we all have success stories that we can tell just like that. But I think there are some that get it. But I think when I look at adoption, I'm not so convinced that we worry about that. That's my time's up. I don't think that we need to so much worry about that 10 to 15% of residential people who will never use the internet. I really think when it comes to adoption is educating these businesses exactly what you can do. We heard about cloud computing and mobile apps and competing worldwide and businesses based in Norfolk. I think that's where adoption is important, is we need to educate these businesses. You can compete worldwide. You don't need to leave. You can come back to Nebraska. And so that would be my focus. There are some people that have already figured it out. But there's a lot of businesses in our small town of 900 that we say, quit selling to the middleman. Sell worldwide on your own. I just don't know how to do that. So how do we, I think there's a lot of training that can go on to help those kind of people. So that would be my focus for adoption, would be those small businesses that are maybe already there that we can help grow using this technology.
The adoption is pretty good in the state of Nebraska. There are outreaches that we still need to get to. I think, kind of back to where we're at as a state as well is I think there's pockets. I think there's areas that have slow broadband. I think that we're okay now. But I think in the years to come, I think we're going to be behind if we don't continue to invest in networks. What you're going to find is that FCC levels are 4 and 1 now. I think those numbers are going to change to 10 and 5, 25 and 10. I don't know. I think that's where the concern is on a going forward basis, and I think that we need to be aware of that. And adoption will come. I mean, as populations start to mature, because when broadband came about, the elderly population didn't have the use or understanding what needed to be done. And I think education of that will help them. I think people are gaining that education as we go through it. I believe the business point is important as well. But from a residential perspective for people, I think it's also important to stay connected to everybody else, and it works. It's all kind of combined.
The education aspect of broadband availability is important. It was described by Troy to educate on what's available out there, but I think it's important too. We've done a great job, and hats off to the other people on the panel for building some world-class networks in the state of Nebraska that can support some extremely high bandwidth applications. But I don't think we've done a very good job of tooting our own horn and letting people know that they're out there. We have some great infrastructure in the state. We have some great availability, but you hear story after story after story of, I didn't know it was there, or I didn't know it was available. We've spent so much time building it that we really haven't told the story of where it's available and what's happening. I think everybody probably has a million stories of this person was able to move to Nebraska and utilize broadband. I can think of one where a radiologist moved to Nebraska, south of Brady, Nebraska, and was able to have synchronous internet to read MRIs and CAT scans and x-rays from his rural home, just by asking what was available. So I know that our friends at the commission have done a great job with the broadband mapping program on letting people know what's out there. But there's also specific instances where education of the availability is important as well.
And then there is the other side of the coin where some people do have a great knowledge of what the internet does, but they're not aware about the broadband. And you're so right. This business owner in South Omaha, that he has like 5 different businesses, and when Cox internet goes down, he says, I lose thousands of dollars when that happens. And that frustrates him. And so this is something that I can share with him about broadband. And then there's another lady that has a very successful business. She's a designer, creates clothing, and she uses only her smartphone to do all her work over the internet and with providers and purchasing. And so there are some that do have that knowledge.
Brian?
Sure. One of the things that we found in terms of adoption in our territory is that we've got great services to a lot of those different businesses that are actually buying the service from us, but they're not utilizing the actual power of the internet, so to speak. And we hosted a Grow Nebraska event in Curtis the other day, just teach businesses how to utilize even a website so they can be found by people looking for their services. We find that even our motels, our feed stores, our service providers, banks, they're not even online so that somebody who's driving through can say, hey, I need to stop and grab 5 bags of salt before I get home. I wonder if there's somebody here in Mullen that I can get that from. By the time, instead of stopping in North Platte, everybody will be closed. Well, there's nobody that's online in Mullen that says I sell salt. And so that's kind of a paradigm that we've got to keep working on with our businesses. If you're driving around Lincoln and you need something, it's easy to pull your smartphone out and ask it what you want to buy and where I can find it. And I don't see that happening as well in western Nebraska, and I think harnessing that power is one thing we got to work on.
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback off what everybody said, I mean, it basically comes down to the education portion of it in regards to not only the consumer, but I mean, if you look at the panel up here, what people may or may not know, we've got very robust networks. We are customers of each other as well as competitors. So if we can do a better job, kind of how Jason explained, network, I didn't know network was there. And I run across them all the time, which customers all, reach out to them, and I'll look at where Unite's placed, and I'm like, okay, well, now what, where to, what do we do to? So the education portion from our perspective, in my opinion, and then also the education portion to the actual consumer on what it can do for them.
Rob,
Yeah.
I have a question in reference to what Brian was saying. For those that don't know, I'm climbing on top of the University of Nebraska Extension, and I was one of the presenters at Curtis with Grow Nebraska and their market tech. I'm all about education, and I've traveled across the state with a lot of my colleagues in reference to doing online marketing training for small business owners. The catch is, how do we get in there? At Curtis, there were 5 businesses. And granted, we're in western Nebraska, and so 5 is a lot. And I'm okay with that. But how do we get to the business owners to get them to come to our training?
That is a great question. It's really hard to get to the business owners even to, unless you offer them free food. Which is usually like the honey for the bees, right? Or the flies, whatever. But it is hard to get people from western Nebraska to actually go to these resources. You almost have to drive in there yourself.
Well, but it's not just western Nebraska. It's really, it's a universal issue across our state in terms of getting the people that we're trying to get the information to come to the actual workshop.
We've got a lot of success stories with little towns because we have one that I guess comes to my mind is Alda, right between here and Grand Island, where we support their entire industrial park of 6, I think it is, businesses. But it is back to educate. It is all about education. They don't know what they have. They really don't know what they need. And who really can predict the future accurately? We talked about the lady that goes down in her little business and loses thousands of dollars Well, that's redundancy. That means cooperatively or coopetitionally, we've got to get 2 services to this business. Well, we're going to have to coexist to satisfy the need.
Again, I'm a marketing guy, so now I'm intrigued on how to get businesses to show up to these things. And honestly, I think we have to go to them. I think that's the only way. I mean, we do surveys and we do events and we do all this kind of stuff. And small businesses just don't show up. They don't answer surveys. They just don't take the time to do that. And for me, it's been, looking at a business and coming up with these ideas for them. And then going to them and saying, let us help you do this, or let us put you in touch with somebody who can help you do that. Using some of our success stories, hey, this business is doing this, and look where they're at now, and you can do the same thing, and this is how we can help you. I don't know, I've never had really good luck getting people to show up to those types of things, but I think if there was a way to go to them and actually give them examples and help them in whatever way we can, but getting to come to them is difficult.
Have you considered going to the carriers that those customers are being served by and just saying, educating guys like us, that, the incumbents in the world, the broadband providers, saying, you have these customers, they need help, maybe they don't know what they need, and maybe that's a better approach, I don't know, but having those staff that people in their community are familiar with, helping them educate your mission as well, and some kind of partnership between the extension agency and the carriers.
Yeah, honestly, I think we've hit on probably the fundamental issue in this whole thing, and that's largely what this project has been about. It's what this conference has been about, and we've run into the same thing of, how do you get people to hear? On the site between AIM and the university, we've got 20 videos of success stories from very small communities about how they're able to create jobs and grow their economy locally. But I think we're still a long ways from critical mass in terms of an understanding of this. So really, if there's something that we can take away from this conference, and I'm interested in engaging the audience in here. I know we've got a number of economic development professionals and community leaders. How do we attack this problem? And Tom laid out one suggestion, but what other ways can we do? Yeah.
I don't have an answer to that, but I represent libraries in this conference, and libraries are very interested in digital literacy for all, including the end user, but the businesses definitely for this conversation. So if you're looking for a partner along with the extension offices, check with your libraries. They should be able to provide space or some web training or something. I'd be interested in developing something too. So I struggle with the same issues as far as getting people to come to it.
So who initiates that conversation? Do you wait for the provider to come to you, or do you reach out to the provider?
Reach out to my provider and the business.
Okay. Yeah, very good.
I just was thinking about the mobile book ban, in the library, maybe the same kind of concept with somebody with a laptop and a computer and a Wi-Fi who goes and visits and is on site at the business at their convenience and offering a set of services. Money, I know. that is the root of it. You're too busy to take the time to do this, and even though you know it's good for you, you can't quite do it.
Right.
We've come a long ways in, 15, 20 years. And you were just reminding me of something that we did in a system in southern Middle Tennessee, where we built a trailer and took computers out to the communities and let people walk into the trailer and use cable modems, which was really the first broadband that was out there to get them off of the dial.
Go ahead.
Well, the Nebraska Extension did the exact same thing about 6 or 8 years ago, and they've been traveling around and doing classes, particularly in ag-based software solutions, that type of thing. But they did Excel and Word and those type of things in the beginning, and then they started introducing broadband to people while they were traveling around with that trailer. Connie, does that trailer still exist? Do you still do those things?
Actually, no, because we're in the world of bring your own device. And so the Bitmobile has converted over to some robotic stuff, and I'm not sure exactly what that's at. But yeah, we've been down the road of the 29-foot trailer with 10 laptops and, yeah.
And it was a mobile classroom.
Yep, mobile classroom.
Right. Well, the cool thing that has kind of happened out of that in some instances was that if the Bitmobile was going to land in one of our towns, we would set up a site for the Bitmobile and deliver the broadband to the trailer so that they could do the training and people could learn how to use the broadband that was in their town and go from there. And from the standpoint of educational and eye-opening kind of situation, that worked pretty well. And we had probably 10 of those classes in our service area now. So
I can tell you a little bit about becoming educated about this. I became passionate about this several years ago when I was in Omaha. My day-to-day in the bank is doing financial planning and investments. A lot of my applications are web-based. So I had my laptop at somebody else's office in Omaha. I plugged in and all of a sudden my computer just hummed. It worked infinitely faster than it worked at home. And it was so much easier and so much quicker to do my work. It was just amazing. And I was that ignorant. I think most of the consumer public is that ignorant about it that they had no idea why it was so much easier to work in Omaha than it was in Gothenburg. So we started this initiative in Gothenburg to try to educate our business community and our consumers. And we got together in a big conference room, and there was probably about 20 business leaders in the room. And we were going around talking about our connectivity. And a lot of the people in the room really had their chest puffed out. And this was this year, in 2014, and they thought they were on the cutting edge because they had P1 lines. So it was really a steep learning curve for our community, but it only happened by true grassroots, and we did a lot of PowerPoints and a heck of a lot of education to just help people understand where the bottlenecks are in their business and in their internet capacity. As somebody who was previously in the dark, you don't know what you have until you know what you could get. And that's really a tough paradigm to flip. I think the root of the challenge. But how do you give somebody in a community of Gothenburg that high-speed internet experience if it isn't widely available anywhere? And until they've had it, until you've eaten a steak, you don't know that hamburgers aren't quite as good. You know, it's really a tough challenge.
Yeah, I'm going to come back with a follow-up to you. Carla, do you have?
Yeah, I do economic development in a small town, and there are several reasons why you're not getting those business owners there. One of the main ones is because they're a one-man shop. They are working from 8 to 7, 8, 9 at night, and they just can't get away. And they're the ones who ultimately make those decisions. Are we on a website? What are we going to do? And so if they can't send somebody to that function who can't bring back a great message that says this is why you need it, they're not going to get somebody there, period, because they have to man their own person, man their own business. So the key is do it on a Saturday, which you often have to do on Saturdays, or you have to figure out at nights. You got to be creative. You have to figure that out when you get them there, because they're already putting in 10, 12-hour days. That is number one, beyond fun. But you also got there's just too many things on their plate. Not only do they have to watch their own shop, there's way too many things that they're obligated to do. Some of that's family, some of that's work. They're just got too many hats to wear. Cost is another factor. I find a lot of small businesses just can't afford if there's a registration fee. It's a challenge to see people come up with a registration fee because in small towns they get up from local schools advertising, they get up to all these different promotional things, stuff like that. There's a lot of different factors. And what I do on a local level is do business visitations. So I have a pretty good idea what businesses are looking for what. A lot of times that's what it kind of takes to get people there. Somebody actually working in that community going, guess what, we're going to be offering this is what it could do, and I want to talk to you about it. But if they're just going to see it on the newspaper, they're just going to see it online, they say, oh yeah, I probably don't need a website, but You know, if they actually get a phone call and say, you know what, you got a few minutes, let me talk to you, because this is what you can learn, then it might open their eyes. When you get their foot in the door, you might have half a chance, but it's a struggle to get them in that workshop. It really is. You got to get to know your business really well and see what makes it tick. Get to know that business owner, see what times it would make to get them there. Yes, food helps, but you know, looking at a few things.
Yeah, great points, great points.
Robbie, some of that like that.
You couldn't hear that very well? Maybe, oh, those of you that can talk loud without the mic, you know.
Hey, Rod, I had a question on that or a point. Is there a chance of any web-based introduction to this stuff? Because I know in our own life, we come out and we time shit. The things we watch on TV aren't when they're scheduled on TV anymore. I'm wondering if some lead-in kind of exposure to would help if it were web-based and do it, you know, at your convenience. If you're a small business owner, you know, you might wake up like I do once in a while, late at night. And, okay, I'm going to go watch that, or Sunday between church and lunch, or some.
That's really sad.
The rest of it won't be available, but you could, you know, I mean, that's what's happening in a lot of people's lives, is time shift and get some kind of lead-in information that they do it when they find the time in their lives. It would be helpful.
Is there an education of economic developers that the extension agencies need to be looking at? I mean, what you're saying is that you're in the community, your boots on the ground. Maybe those people are carrying the message for the extension agency about here's what they have for programs, here's what they can offer, and intriguing them that way, and then saying can you come to something, or is there a grant program for those that maybe can't afford the registration fee or something like that. There's a lot of economic developers, and everybody I think as a community has seen the value of economic developers in their community. Business visits are a key piece of that for economic developers. Is there some kind of correlation with the extension agencies and those economic developers that makes sense?
Yeah, Carl, we're get the mic to you.
Yeah, and just to kind of follow up on that a little bit, I know our local internet provider, one of the things that they've been doing recently, and I think it's been a big help, I've seen that people are starting to come around to it more and more, is that, community involvement is getting hard because people are so committed in so many different functions. There's people who want to get involved, they just don't have time. And that's just a huge factor, whether you've got a business owner or whether you're a parent or whatever. So, I mean, like, when we have a town hall meeting, get people there, they want to come, but again, they're just torn on different things, but we need them there because how are we going to make things happen if we can't get you there and voicing your thoughts? Well, as you well know, people love to voice thoughts if they're negative, so it's like, come on, attend. But it's hard to get them there. So one of the things we've been doing is videotaping who does come, and then the local TV provider plays it back and advertises that on the local channel, and then people will actually take time of their own, like one gentleman said up there, take the time of their own initiative, and then you can monitor that because you can see how many people are viewing it and watching, people are actually taking time to watch the town hall meeting, so they at least know what's going on. The press coverage does cover it too, but it's kind of nice that you can actually see it on video and have it played back locally on a TV station. That does help, and that is a kind of a growing thing. I think that's been helping our community anyway. That's another way to try to get them more involved too, is you got to get it out there so that they can come back and say, okay, we've scheduled it to play 3 times during the day. Can that work for you? And maybe do it 3 times during the week. At least you're getting it out there so that they can do it what works for them.
Just to answer Jean's question as well, we do have a display over here that has 3 online curriculums available it's free for business owners. So if you, it's just all we're asking for is name and email in terms of registration so that we can do maybe some follow-up work with those folks. But Please check out our display.
Two things I'd like to tag on is that Brian fixed the given there. Let's just do food and do it all day. They'll come whenever they want to. But all of us up here have websites that have assistance and training and those types of things to educate their current user. What you can help us with is giving and assisting and educating those non-users that really don't understand it, don't get it.
Yeah, question over here.
I think also, just one more thing, it has to be important to them. It really does. I think in our experience with the Gothenburg community was broadband was important enough to them. When we did our first initial launch, we had 1,000 people that showed up at the event. So if it's important to them, they'll come out. If they want to see change, they'll do it. If it's part of that for them, it's got to be driven by the people too. You can't force them food, booze, or anything. That's what it is.
Yeah, question over here.
Yeah, I just have a comment. I think in some cases we may need to look at the specific needs of a business, because part of the question, as an example of, say, putting on the web that they carry something, is that they might have a particular system they use for their inventory control, purchasing, that kind of thing, that may be specific to them, or that they might have a specific vendor. So we might have to go in and drill down more than just a generic education and say, okay, for your particular application, what can we do to leverage what you already have there to get it out on the web that shows what you want to show in your inventory, where you can minimize the extra effort that you have to go into maintaining it. That's one thing about it. You have to constantly maintain. You can install it once, but then you have to maintain, keep your database updated and accurate. And so I think in some cases we may need to hone in on specific applications for specific businesses as opposed to the more generic education, or in addition to.
Yeah. Okay. Other questions or comments? Yeah, Randy, and then over there.
There's a body of research called the diffusion of innovations. And I'll get a little academic here with you. I'm just looking at it here. A fellow by the name of Rogers did this. And some of the research was done, for those of you in extension, related to agriculture. And so how can we reach farmers to help them take advantage of the research we've done at universities and apply it to their farming? And what they learned was that farmers look at each other's fields to find out what's working well. I think we can apply the same idea for businesses, because business people, just like you all shared up there on the panel, you're checking each other out. You want to know what so-and-so's doing over there and learning from it. And so maybe, and I think the Gene's suggestion of putting videos on the web, I know that the Broadband Initiative has done a few videos. I encourage you to do more, because that's how businesses are going to find out what really works. Maybe I sell licorice like they do in Lincoln, and they have a worldwide audience. But it doesn't matter whether it's licorice or whether it's websites or whether it's something else. If you're in business and you're looking at what somebody else is doing, you learn from it. So I encourage you to do more videos.
Okay, thanks.
Do you guys remember the movie Babe, where the owner of the pig gets a fax machine and then enrolls the pig through the fax machine, and it was something that he thought he didn't need? I think that this broadband and the internet and the different computer and technology is going to catch up eventually, but we need to create more conferences and alert the people about how they can get broadband or get the internet and be able to use it for their benefit. And shamelessly, I'm going to plug our event that we're going to have in Omaha, because since we're doing this survey, we are going to have a conference in Omaha on October the 10th at the Kroc Center. And you can go online to broadbandconnectconference.org. And we're doing this for the Latino community, and I believe this is the first conference that we're going to have about technology in Omaha for for all the businesses, and it's going to be bilingual, and we're going to have different applications and different companies demonstrating cool tools and moving to the cloud, and we have wonderful speakers. And I want to thank Charlotte and Bern for helping me, helping us come up with this conference that is going to be next week, Friday from 9 to 2 o'clock. And we're only asking for the $35 for the cost of the food. Everything else is going to be very accessible. Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to ask you to do that, so thank you for mentioning it. Yeah.
There's been a lot of the examples of success with broadband, and only with Gene mentioning the Nebraska Statewide Telehealth Network, which has been very successful, largely because of the Public Service Commission, so thank you very much for that. The broadband is in hospitals and public health departments, and that's not an issue. What the issue is, the physicians are not able to follow up on their patients in their homes. There's a revolution coming in healthcare, and it's not going to be, people aren't going to be paid to be in the hospital and do tests. They're going to be paid to keep people healthy out of the hospitals, out of the physician's offices. And healthcare entities are going to be penalized, if you will, if the patient is readmitted into a hospital 30 days after they've left. And that's good. I mean, we don't want people to come back in the hospital. In order to be able to follow them and make sure they don't come back in the hospital, we have to make sure that they're taking their meds, they're doing their exercises, they're seeing their doctor, etc. And if the patient lives 50 miles north-south of Maryland, it's going to be very hard for nurses to go out there and follow up on them. Broadband then will allow more of that to happen. It's being done all over in the urban areas, but we need to have it in the rural areas as well, because those people chose to live there, and that's their lifestyle, and they shouldn't be penalized for it. They need to have broadband in those homes just as much as everybody living in Kearney or Omaha, whatever it might be. So I think that there's a revolution coming, and I think broadband companies need to work together to see how to get broadband into the individual homes. Broadband enough to handle real-time audio and video. So, great suggestion.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
Another thing that telehealth, we could have telehealth ambulances, equipment is out there, infrastructure is out there, except broadband along the highways. If the volunteer ambulance service only gets maybe 10 runs a year and they get complex patients and take them to whatever hospital, it would serve that patient and those EMTs more if they could connect up to the local doctor or the local ED in a tertiary center and get some help with that patient. That patient would benefit too. But we don't have that all over the state's highways yet.
Thank you. I'm going to come back to something Nate was talking about because I think it's pertinent given what Ryan was talking about yesterday. You got 20 business people in a room. I mean, one of his comments was it almost takes a champion in a community like Gothenburg to take the lead and make that happen. How are you able to make that happen?
I think a lot of community pride, I think would be it. And when I say 20 people in the room, it was the CEO of the hospital, the ownership of the banks in town, the plant manager of the plant, so it wasn't just, it was decision makers in the community. And I think it really does take your economic development team all getting together and getting behind a common cause. And you really do have to educate those people. I'll say it again, but us as consumers, myself being a consumer, we're truly uninformed. For you people, you have a real strong pulse on what's going on. As consumers, we really don't know. I use my phone and I expect it to work. You know, I don't know how it works. I don't know why it works.
Just fine. Works just fine. Yeah.
But you've got to educate the business community, which is going to spill over to the residential side. That's the amazing thing, is it started with maybe 20 business people in our community, and it spilled over to 1,000 people. in a town of 3,500. So it really spilled over to the residents, and we had the plant manager for a big manufacturer giving presentations to all 3 shifts, so that the residential piece, that there was a lot of education, and I don't know how that partners with extension or how that partners with regulation, but it's really got to happen. We had success doing it through grassroots. We did everything from presentations at the fire hall, at their meetings, after church services. We did presentations, PEO meetings, we did Facebook stuff. We really did a grassroots campaign, a bunch of email marketing, just to educate people about broadband issues and how that could really help. So I don't know how this group applies that to other communities, but it's got to be by mind of the community and get those leaders on board.
Would expect the rest of you probably have some examples of other communities that are doing good stuff. Is there a common theme like this where you're seeing this happen, or anything else you can suggest that's the ways that the community can engage providers and do what needs to be done?
I think there's items that people that are out there doing things that, to me, Gothenburg is very, very unique. I mean, coming from when we, in 2009 in Cambridge and Bartley, we did fiber to the home through our incumbent telephone company, and then we did go through the education process, and it's a little different story, but the way that Gothenburg took the buy-in and got the buy-in of the community on board with it, if you don't have those community leaders driving that force like Nate and Angie Richardson, she's here as well, those people that are driving the boat, that doesn't happen the way that Gothenburg is moving forward as quickly as it is. So you got to have that, and they're very unique. I think, and just we look at different locations and different places in the state and try and identify those, and this is a very unique situation, I think.
I'm glad I don't need the microphone. So there's been an interesting byproduct that as I listen to Nate and live adjacent to Nate and Tom, that I don't know can be expressed by what they talk about. And that interesting byproduct is because that broadband has been accessible in that community and it's been adopted the way it has, the spillover for the connectivity from those organizations when they come to other places of the state has been really impressive and incredible. We talk about having the cooperation between the different entities up here at this table, but this organization then works with our organization to work with another organization maybe in Lincoln, Nebraska. So there's connectivity for these entities in this town of 3,500 in central Nebraska to the metro areas that they never knew was capable before. The onus is on us at that point in time to be, we kind of joke within our organizations, we're not marketers, we're not technical providers anymore, we need to be evangelists, if you will. It's on us now to become broadband evangelists and say, hey, this connectivity is out there. But even the economic development within Gothenburg has spilled over into the other small communities around there, and now their infrastructure and accessibility to broadband has grown, or at least the awareness.
And I think a big piece of that is we went through this process and we struck out a ton of times. We talked to most of the providers in the room and tried to get them to come to Gothenburg. As an economic development person, understanding the industry has helped us infinitely. There's certain penetration rates that they have to get, and understanding that these are for-profit businesses with shareholders that they've got business. They're not a true, they are kind of a quasi-utility, or I don't know what regulation it falls under, but they're businesses, and we, as communities, need to learn how to speak the industry talk and how to open their eyes as to the fact that there may be a profitable business model within your community. So there was a real steep learning curve on our part. It wasn't just the grassroots and the education. The reason why we had to do the grassroots and the education is because we started to understand the industry more and more, and we had to figure out how to make ourselves more marketable to a partner in our community. So if you're an economic developer, spend some time talking to different providers and trying to understand how you can partner with them and how you can be more marketable to them. You can't just be the 2-year, and that's how we started. We started a 2-year-old demanding the sucker at the table, and that didn't work. We kept pointing at it and saying, hey, we want that. We want you to bring any of that to our town. And nobody did. It wasn't until we presented ourselves as an opportunity that could be profitable and could be a partnership. That's how we finally got served.
Well, I just wanted to give one example of kind of what these guys are talking about, with what we did in Hastings with our fiber ring. And that really just started with a customer that we had had for a very long time who came to us and said, this fixed wireless that you're providing to our corporation is not adequate, and we need fiber. And so we came back with a proposal that gave the least cost, route to get to them, and the president of that company said, I'm on the economic development board, what if we went this way? We know it's going to cost us twice as much, but look at all the businesses that we could potentially help along this route if we went this way. And so that led us to go by, 50 or 60 businesses where originally it would have went just by them. I thought that was really interesting that they kind of put themselves out there. It cost them more money to get fiber, but he looked at it as, I'm an economic development, I'm on the board of the Hastings Economic Development. What if we went this direction? You could buy all these other businesses that we could potentially help. I thought that was kind of neat. I think it goes off of what these guys are talking about. You do need somebody to champion that project. And since then, now the whole town is kind of excited about all the fiber that we're putting in Hastings. And so it's just really grown because, one business leader said, well, I had an idea, let's go a different way. And so I think that is something that you really need in your community to really have a provider look at it and go, oh, they're excited. This could be a profitable thing for us.
We have a comment over here.
I just was going to talk about the education piece. I spent a lot of time in businesses, and most of my, like Jason had alluded to, broadband evangelists, broadband professors or teachers is what we do most of the time, because broadband, everybody has their own definition of broadband. Some it's 5 by 1, some it's 10 by 2, some it's 100 by 100. You don't know until you sit down and actually learn how broadband is delivered. What are you doing as a business? Where do you fit along the spectrum to run efficiently? You were just talking about somebody that lost thousands of dollars when their broadband goes down. They probably shouldn't be paying $40 a month in for broadband service. They should be paying probably a couple $100 more for broadband service and have them self-protected and shielded in case there is an issue. These are the type of things, education-wise, that I find people are totally, they know they need something. You can't get a 10 by 1 or 10 by 2 broadband service and run 10 wireless devices on it. And then you're going to be cursing your provider, even though it's not their fault. So that's the piece. That's the piece that I find is a challenge all the time. Is people are eager to want to learn and they know they got to do something. And Connie has done a great job on a lot of the things that she's got out there, but getting that education piece and then the cost. I mean, you're not going to pay $50 to get really good broadband service. You're probably going to need to pay more money for it.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Jay. Other questions or comments? Yeah. Yes.
I'm in economic development in northeast Nebraska in Wayne, and we've done a lot of surveys like the other economic developers in the room. Can we use that? Yeah. What we use in business retention and expansion surveys. And one of the questions we always ask is the internet services in the community good enough for your growth, for your future growth? And I think in the 9 years I've been in economic development, not once has a business said no. It's always been good enough for their growth. The bigger issue that I always get is the reliability and when they're downtime, what Liz had alluded to. So what are you doing for redundancy purposes? I mean, great, fiber to the homes, fiber to the businesses, but if that fiber strand breaks or whatever happens, what are you doing for redundancy?
We have redundant routes that come in and out of both community, or the communities that we serve. We try and make that as a point. Like in Gothenburg, we've got 2 different routes. We use multiple carriers that are sitting at this table, along with our own backhaul networks as well. So redundancy is important. Downtime is an important issue, and we try to mitigate that as much as possible. So.
I think one of the unique things that we've done is that we understand which businesses it's absolutely necessary that they have 100% uptime, which 100% is, if anybody's promising that, that's lying to you, but we try, and so one of the commitments that we make is, if a business is that way, is it's 24/7 local support. You can call me at home or somebody else, having local repair technicians that can do fiber splicing, and it's really no different than, the copper line gets cut. We've had business say, well, you're going to put fiber in, and if it gets cut, how long am I going to be down? Well, how long are you going to be down if your copper gets cut or your cable line or whatever it is? It really has to be a commitment on our part to provide timely support, and so we made that commitment, and I think you mentioned it earlier, is multiple providers coming into a building. I mean, there's been a lot of times when we put fiber into the building and somebody's like, okay, well, we can't be down. Well, if you absolutely can't be down, then you need to look at a backup solution from somebody else also. And so those 2 things I think are important. And a business has to make that decision. If I really can't be down ever, then you've got to get maybe multiple providers. But you got to look at your provider and say, what kind of response are they going to provide me? And everybody has a different philosophy, and ours is, call me at home and somebody will be there within, an hour or 2 and get you back up and going. But I think those things are important to look at when you're looking at providers, is how fast they respond and then a few other things. But
Troy's phone will be up here real shortly, so you guys can spread that around the state. We're all dependent upon each other to make that redundancy happen for the state. As everybody's alluded, there's multiple providers, and in some communities those exist for the benefit of the consumers. The story of Gothenburg and other towns that have multiple providers, they've really got metro accessibility. But what does that mean to them? And yesterday, when Ryan was speaking about his startup company and people living literally out in the rural, how are they going to get that broadband? And another question or comment out of the crowd was that there's got to be more amenities in these communities to really thrive and grow and utilize this technology so that the people that are attracted to the good life of Nebraska have all the things that they want and need accessible in addition to broadband. So we've got to have the economic development people have got to look at what are the things that these, the import, as they say, the shift is going now out of metro or out of urban living to more rural living. How do we bring all those other pieces out to those communities so that they get the services and conveniences that they're used to in a bigger metro? And that is, we have to educate.
Liz, I think it's awesome we've got this conference coming up in Omaha. I know there are substantial Latino populations in other communities in the state. Can you speak to what can or is being done as far as outreach there? And I don't know if you want to pick on Juan as well.
Thank you. Well, through the extension office, there are we are doing a different survey monkey. My English is not my first language, but I understand that Juan Sandoval is doing his part in his community, and he is in Columbus, Norfolk, and I think that's about it, right? in the Latino community that we are doing the outreach. And so my...
Pastora, I'm sorry for my interruption. I am business consultant of the Nebraska Department of Economic Development. We are working for all the state. And the idea is to survey the community and know about the knowledge and the needs of the community. This is what we are doing too in all the state.
But actual people taking the survey, there isn't too many, and we are being evangelists and talking to people about internet and broadband, and it's a totally new language for some people, and getting them educated, a lot of it has to do with one-on-one. And I think that's, I'm so glad that I'm doing that in the Omaha community, in the Latino community, because otherwise we wouldn't have this information out there, and it's needed. I think that when you have economic development for any community, eventually this village of the profitability and gain of money, and it's mostly the American dream. Everybody wants to have the American dream, and now you can get it anywhere. You don't have to be in a big city to have it, because now you have the broadband and you have the internet, and you can do your business mostly anywhere. And I want to do that one day too.
Wonderful. Yeah, Gene?
Yeah, I have a question. I've heard most of the providers who I think do a good job and talk about broadband. But policy-wise, we have this problem that broadband and the internet are synonymous for a lot of people, especially in DC. And I guess I'd like your feedback on the notion that we need to separate the two. As we're looking at universal service policy, we need to be looking at the infrastructure layer in an IP network, not the applications layer or something like the internet. I don't think the general public even understand that difference. And I think it's important to keep talking broadband without saying, using the word internet as a synonym for broadband, because I guess technically they're not. And before we can get policy moving in the right direction, like contributions and stuff, we've got to get away from, oh my God, we're going to tax the internet and what we're doing. And I'd like your thoughts on that.
If I can only add to that, I think Gene's right. We all say internet and we're needing broadband and vice versa. And it's not vice versa. People think they are one and the same. However, I think we all have heard the term the information highway. The highway is broadband. And that, if you don't have the highway, you're not going to get the internet. And people really don't understand that, and I think it's incumbent on all of us who are trying to teach people what the differences are. Otherwise, they will always be confused, especially the people who say that we don't want to tax the internet. We have roads in Nebraska, we tax people for using our public roads. And so you want to call it tax, a fee, it is for usage, and people who use something should contribute something. And a lot of people said it was only a penny a person, given the number of people who use it. We have a lot of money.
Well, I think I agree with Eugene and Commissioner Boyle about the contribution side and the infrastructure side. It goes back to where we're at today versus where we're going to need to be in 5 years. And if those contributions don't change and the universal service funds are not available in that situation, rural Nebraska will fall behind. Rural states in general will fall behind. We can't afford that. I think you're right. It's not synonymous. Broadband and internet are not. I think you have to be able to come up with a strategy on a federal level as well as a state level to be able to help fund these networks into the rural areas to continue the growth and the speeds that all of the consumers and businesses are going to need. And I think it's important. I think it's part of the discussion, and you make a valid point there.
Again, this panel represents through the state. We've got capacity to run 18-wheelers side by side for probably a bunch of lanes. But it's the usage that really isn't understood, because there's so many different flavors available and coming in what internet and broadband really are. As we alluded to, some people, it's 5x1 is just fine. Hey, we're doing fine. But other people, they say they need a gig, and eventually I think they will. But we've got gig capacity systems out there, but we have small usage. And and thank God we do have that superhighway through this state. It covers us very, very well. But it's the usage that's going to change and does need probably the most education. What type of product a broadband product do you need?
If I could add one more thing, we are here talking in the language of the computer systems that we are talking about. The public doesn't understand, and we're not talking about the masses, the individuals, the people who have the computers in their home. They don't understand the difference of what's a megahertz is and whatever. And we all talk in our language, and we need to dumb it down to say this means this. So if you want to get capacity this fast, I would find other terms to help them understand that, so they don't think, oh well, you're trying to sell me something I don't need. And I think that is something that the industry needs to tackle. Well, all of us have to start talking in the language of people who don't understand it. They're not going to build an internet. They're not going to build any of this. Somebody up here said, I just want to turn it on and make it go. That's what everybody's expecting, and they're trying to make them learn the technology.
Well, Gene asked some very interesting questions a little bit ago about essentially USF policy, and I've prepared a day's worth of commentary on that, but I don't think we want to go there really. But right now, we're in a huge federal transition when it comes to universal service in the rural area, and Gene was kind of alluding to that. Right now, at the federal level, they are working on a new model that would allow both the largest carriers, the CenturyLinks and the Frontiers and AT&Ts, to get compensated for actually building out to rural areas, and there actually is kind of some incentive built in to do that. If they can build out to rural areas, they can get additional support for offering a broadband service. They're also working on, side by side, but much slower, a project to do the same thing for small rural carriers as well. And in the past, we've had an incentive program from the federal side that as you invested in rural, you could recover some support before doing that investment. Well, that support process is totally changing for rural providers right now. So if you're a small rural provider of telecommunications and you're able to receive support, you're in kind of this very interesting law land, which could last for another 2 to 4 years, maybe even 10, depending on how long they want to drag this out and what happens with future administrations of the FCC. So I would just put a little caution on the fact that we've got a lot of changes going on, but even though here in Nebraska, not everywhere, but here in Nebraska still, small rural providers are investing like crazy. And I bet you if you would ask the guys on this panel up here, how many of us still have $1 million or more worth of construction we're going to try and get done this year? It's all of us. And maybe some of us, it's way more than that. We are plowing as fast as we can go in most places to get more projects done, to get more bandwidth out to different people, more superhighway built. And a lot of that we're doing with our own risk capital right now. And so I just want to throw out the business piece of this. There is a huge underlying issue around universal service support for rural customers, and Nebraska has had great policy over the years regarding universal service for rural customers, and that's why in our service territory of over 9,000 square miles, we have about 98% of everybody has broadband capacity at least a 4.1 level. So we've had some pretty amazing policy out there, and a lot of that is in paradigm shift. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out. We have to be careful what we wish for, and we also have to be careful where the future's headed. It could hurt rural Nebraska if we're not careful.
Okay. Well, I'm going to invite each of our panelists to kind of put in a final word here. We're just about out of the time slot. Say whatever you want, but I guess one item that you might want to address, I'm going to hazard a guess that any of the providers up here would be more than happy to engage community leaders in what's happened in Gothenburg, for example. So if you have any thoughts or suggestions on the best way to do that, I'd love to hear them. Otherwise, just if we just kind of go down the row and any last words you have for us.
First of all, I'd just like to thank you for having this. This is the first time Younes been to this conference. I think it's very beneficial for us. Just listening to, having the interaction, it's kind of opened my eyes to what I feel I need to take back to management as far as how we move forward. So many times we're constantly looking at this far in front of our face instead of this far. It's constantly, sales. What do you do now? What's this month? What's next month? And by listening to what this conference is about, there's certain things that I'm going to take back and reach out to the economic development folks and work with them and educate them and work together and put more Unite classes in.
Awesome.
I would just say, I don't know, Rod, if you would explain what the future of this conference is, but I think one of the discussions that we need to have going away from here is where does this conference go, grow, or continue? So that's one point I would put out there. And then secondly, I would say that anybody on this panel would be happy to work with any economic development folks or extension folks or whoever. And I'm taking a good thing back regarding this, the hospital question. I think from telehealth side, I think we have some new ideas there around how can we touch the medical community with being providers and saying, hey, we have that service for you. Where do you need it? And can we serve that patient for you? And I think we can in a lot of cases. So I think we need to figure out how to make that connection too. So.
I'll just close with, I hope we can get the education done. There's just so much that's not known. We don't know every time what the end user needs, but neither do they. We're going to try to continue to grow a network that's robust and has redundancy. I'm not just speaking for Charter, I'm speaking for this panel, because it is ultimately the end user that we're supporting and that we sell to. So the customer wants more, that's our job, is to give them more. But it is a two-way education. I think this panel's learned something today too that we'll take back, as Jason said, and talk to our managements and say, we need this in Nebraska. If we're going to continue to participate in the growth and this fulfilling the demand and making it affordable and accessible.
Well, I think one of the things that we didn't talk about, and I know I talked to Dennis the other day, is, what about broadband and the tractor? I think that was a big topic last year, and we talked about, with the drones, and those things are really neat, and I think provide a lot of value, but, what about the real-time data, to the farmer that's out in the field? I mean, we've talked about a lot of big city projects, and I guess maybe not cities, but, big communities, and that's one thing that I think needs to continue to be explored. And I think too that the education, somebody said tooting our own horn, there's a lot of good stuff going on. I mean, I know not just in Gothenburg, we're doing it in Holdridge and Hastings and our small communities, and I know Consolidated and some of these other guys are doing great things in there, but people just don't know about it. They don't know why it's important. I had a high school kid stop by and he's like, when is Google going to bring their fiber to Nebraska? And my response, honestly, was who cares? We're doing it. I mean, there's nothing different that Google's doing that we're not doing in Blue Hill, Nebraska. If you want a gig internet connection in Blue Hill, Nebraska, come get it. If you want to pay for it, it's there. I mean, we can do it already, so you guys are not doing anything different in Gothenburg than Google's doing in Kansas City. Just people don't know about it, and you're not Google, but it's already happening, and I think we just have to tell people that we have this stuff now. It's not, like, Google's not the only one that can do it.
That was pretty good, Troy. That's the best I've heard from you in years. I think that as we've noticed across all of the, through the conference, I think that it doesn't just take one set group of people. It takes everybody. It takes economic developers. It takes regulation. It takes carriers. But this communication, I think that this convention that you've got is a great piece. We go to I'm from a carrier's point of view, we go to a lot of different events. But like Commissioner Boyle said, we're all talking the same language, and it's a foreign language to a lot of people that aren't in that. And this is a great area to come and talk to economic developers, to talk to the general public about what we really do, and that we are here to support the needs and wishes of consumers. And what we've done, and from our company, and will be my shameless plug for what we do, we're willing to talk to anybody. We think that there's plenty of opportunities in the state of Nebraska. We think there's opportunities outside of the state of Nebraska. But that we have to be diligent about where we're going. We can't just sit idle. Pinpoint's focus is how do we move forward, and how do you move forward quickly. And we have to put that into perspective, and it's going to take the commissioners of the state. It's going to take the federal, and it's going to take groups like NebraskaLink and Glenwood and Charter and Unite to work together, because we can't all do it. We can't do it by ourselves, and it's just not possible. So understanding this and looking at all the other opportunities that are out there and all the discussions that need to be had, it is an important thing, and I hope, Rod, that we can find a way to keep this convention moving forward.
It's been an interesting industry for me to learn a lot about. When you talk about the difference between broadband and the internet, and so you're shaking that, I don't know. But at the end of the day, your telephone that's at your house, your cell phone, your cable, your internet, they all travel through the same pipeline at the end of the day. And I don't know if my consumers lack understanding of that. I'd say most of them probably do. And that's something that we tried to understand in Gothenburg, that we needed to have the infrastructure in place that could handle whatever the next evolution was, whether that's the death of the home phone, and having the scalability. I don't know. It's amazing to me. I work with a lot of senior citizens. How many people don't unplug their home phone? They've switched cell phones. It's really inspiring to me how adaptable people are. That was one of the messages last night in the keynote presenter showing the picture of the owl and the adaptability. You guys' industry really is in flux, and it is changing. And it's fun to see from an outsider's point of view really how efficient it is and how much teamwork there is with competition. I know we certainly don't have that in the investment world or in the banking world. We compete fairly fiercely with each other, and you guys do work together, and regulation does play a part in that, trying to encourage that camaraderie and that teamwork, and just getting the infrastructure in the ground. It's exciting to me to see the commitment that providers are making in small towns. I have an idea of the dollars that's going into our community. And you do have to have, I think, a long-term perspective and really view those communities as partners. And that's how we certainly view our providers. To any economic developers out there, I'd be very willing to share any insights we have into the industry to how to maybe speak their language. Even after spending a lot of time getting familiar with it, still have an awful lot to learn. And it's that education piece that I don't know how university and other outreach programs, and I think even the providers can probably do a better job of that. But you guys are busy people too. You're busy putting in infrastructure, and I think education really is a critical factor in more industry understanding. Thanks for all you guys do for the whole community, the state of Nebraska. It is very important work that you guys do. It does really make a difference in people's lives.
I don't know that I have a whole lot to follow up after Nate's. I want to just say ditto, but I will tell you that the people in this room, the educators, the economic development professionals, the other carriers, we know that we need to educate more. And thank you for taking that lead, being that spearhead in these communities, and going out there and engaging the people and saying, what is it that we need? What is it that the providers can provide for you in this highway? And the challenge I would actually give to you folks who engage those front lines every day is challenge us. Let us know what can we provide. I hope you got the message from the success stories in some of these communities in Nebraska is no matter what it is, if you guys can think it, challenge us, because there's probably somebody that will rise to the challenge and come up with a solution. So thank you for your support and bringing this challenge to us, and I would say keep up the good work there.
Ron, I want to say thank you for inviting me to be part of this panel. I feel a little bit odd. But I learned so much from this conference, and I am so grateful that I was able to come. And Commissioner, you're so right. We need to differentiate in the language of internet and broadband. And I'm going to take that back to my community and teach them about the highway and how they can have an option and not lose thousands of dollars in business because they didn't think of investing a few more dollars on a broadband and have that money secure, which is very important to everyone. Nobody wants to lose money. And so it's educate, and we're gonna get there. Thank you.
Thanks. Then to Brian and Tom's question about the future of the conference, I think as you know, the conference is part of the larger Nebraska Broadband Initiative, which is funded in large measure by a federal grant that's expiring in the next few months. Now, your generous sponsorships and registration fees go a long way toward supporting the conference, but not all the way. I will tell you that the project partners are having ongoing conversations about how we sustain not only the conference, but much of the other good work that's going on as part of the project. So I don't think it's for lack of interest or willingness to try and do this again, but we'll definitely be in touch to engage with you and see how we can keep this going. So again, thank you, all of you, for your support and for being part of the panel. So let's give our panel a round of applause.